So AIRM was started about 7 years ago. The program was initiated, and it was initiated by the Department of Defense. And the reason for doing it was the very high number of casualties in young people coming out of the battlefields in Iraq and Afghanistan. And the pattern of injuries from war has changed over time because the body armor is so good, and because medical care on the battlefield is so good. There are a lot of people surviving with injuries that previously they wouldn't have survived with. And many of these injuries affect the limbs. And the limbs, the face, or have extensive burns. So the AIRM has concentrated very much on treatment for people with these type of limb and burn and face injuries. So in the initial AIRM, which stands for the Armed Forces Institute of Regenerative Medicine, a number of institutions were funded by the Department of Defense to focus on different areas. So there was an area that was focusing on injuries to the face and head and neck, and during the first 5 years that actually resulted in a clinical study in which the first face transplant was done in the United States. The other areas of concentration were, as I mentioned, the limbs, and our project was specifically targeted towards limb injuries. And so Dr. Yazemski's group was part of the consortium that was looking at bone repair and how to repair defects in bone, and our group was focusing on nerve injuries. In the first part of AIRM, in AIRM 1, in the first 5 years, we were able to develop, in collaboration with Dr. Yazemski's group, a new scaffold for repairing peripheral nerves. And this is a conduit or a guideway for nerves to regrow. It's synthesized from a polymer, and the polymer synthesis and structure and design was all created here at Mayo Clinic. And that's at the stage now where we are submitting information about this new polymer and the scaffold to the FDA to begin a clinical trial. So the principles behind repairing nerves and repairing bones is that typically you have two ends of a nerve or two parts of a bone that need to be connected together again. And we often think of that as being like building a bridge between them. If we can build a bridge, then we'll be able to get things working again. Now, the polymers that we're talking about, in essence, they form the bridge that would allow the body's own cells or the body's resources to come in and sort of move into that bridge and rebuild it with natural materials from the body. In terms of nerves, it really is like train tracks on the bridge, that if you can get the tracks there, then the nerve endings will grow along those and reconnect. Now, in the second part of the AIRM 2, which has just been funded, we're now looking at the next steps. So we think the synthetic scaffold will be a good start, but we think also that some sort of cell component will be needed to aid in nerve repair. And so we're now working on designing the type of cells and putting in the type of cells that will enable us to move forward to repair even larger nerve gaps. One of the important things about AIRM has been the extraordinary level of collaboration that it's brought into research in this field. You know, there's always been a little bit of a history of competition between investigators. This project has been very successful because of focusing on collaboration. So in both the bone projects and the nerve projects, Mayo Clinic has been collaborating during AIRM-1 very closely with investigators at the Cleveland Clinic, Rutgers in New Jersey, Harvard University, and Massachusetts Institute of Technology in Boston. Now, in the first phase, where we were looking at new types of polymers to repair nerve and bone, the individual institutions were developing their own special types of polymer, and then we were bringing them all together to put them into appropriate animal models to determine which one worked best. It was a kind of, we called it a stage gate or a horse race to see which one would promote the best regeneration in nerve and bone. And then it's the best materials from that have been taken forward. So this degree of collaboration where groups were exchanging materials, comparing them in different materials from different laboratories in their own laboratory has been very, very successful. So one of the important things about AIRM is that the focus is clearly on our young men and women who have been serving abroad and injured in that way. But the important thing about it is that the technologies that are developed here will be applicable to anybody who has a nerve injury, for example. So somebody who has a tumor of a nerve where part of the nerve has to be removed, or someone who's in an accident, say a farm accident where they sustain a significant nerve injury. This technology will be applicable to all of them, and the technologies that are being used are within this new field of regenerative medicine. Now, clearly this is an emphasis for Mayo Clinic. The new Center for Regenerative Medicine here is focusing exactly on developing these kind of technologies. So the alignment between AIRM and the goals of bringing the results of new research as quickly as possible into the patient aligns perfectly with between Mayo Clinic and AIRM. Another aspect that's been unique about AIRM has been the collaboration between the individual institutions and the researchers and the various military hospitals such as Walter Reed. And there have been a number of very interesting ways that interaction has worked. The first is that many of the researchers who are involved are also active duty or reserve service members. So Dr. Yazemski here is a very good example where he's an orthopedic surgeon, he's a polymer chemist and chemical engineer, but he's also a brigadier general. And during AIRM-1, the first part of AIRM, he served 2 tours of active duty in the battlefields. So at one level, the collaboration is that the researchers are actually working in the field of battle and seeing what type of injuries there are. The second is that the military medical system is trying to bring these new solutions to difficult problems as quickly as possible to the service people who need them. So within the AIRM funding has been special mechanisms to bring the clinical trials directly to the servicemen and women. One of the things that's been different about this mechanism of funding has been it's very goal-oriented. So a lot of medical research that's going on is clearly directed towards curing diseases, but it often slows down when it gets to that point where it moves from the laboratory into the clinic. The AIRM mechanism has been such that there's been a lot of support for making that transition, of actually translating things, giving support to investigators perhaps who are not used to bringing things into the clinic, or to clinicians who are not used to working with scientists to help bridge that gap so that things can move forward more quickly. And the funding is dependent on making progress forward. And forward means into the patients.